Life is a winding road, no telling where it goes. Driving through days and nights, won't stop for traffic lights. And I really wanna know if I'll ever figure out where the road goes. Even if I'm falling down, I will keep on searching for my highs. You can say I lost my mind, I will keep on holding my head high. Even if the sky is falling down.
All right, and happy Thursday, everyone. You are here for another episode of Successfully Chaotic. And I have a guest today who is, let me kind of backtrack. Now, I don't even know if you know this or not, but we've been talking a lot about just kind of health and wellness, just that whole, kind of ensemble, because they do go together. Mm-hmm. And, that was one of the reasons we thought that you would be a great guest, is just because you do have a background in the financial world. And, I've been pretty, open with kind of my own story. I wasn't taught a lot about the financial world growing up. It wasn't something I went to school for. It definitely wasn't something that went on in my home. My family had no money. So, it was one of the things I had to learn as I've gotten older and become an adult. And a lot of times when you don't have anybody kind of guiding you through, you make a lot of mistakes in that world. So, a lot of these things I've had to kind of learn as I've gone on, but that was why I was excited to have you on, is that, there's a lot of our listeners and a lot of people that, or that we serve, as far as like our listeners that are in that same boat, to where, they need some guidance, right? They need some actionable items that they can put into use today. Even the idea of like investing, that wasn't something that, I even thought about doing as an entrepreneur for many years, and I wasted obviously a lot of years not doing it. But that was one of the reasons I was super excited to have you on. You've got a great kind of backstory, and I'm going to shush up now and let you kind of explain a little bit about that, about who you are, and kind of what kind of brought you to where you are now.
Yeah, and thank you for having me, Maria. I appreciate it. When I saw your podcast, it was, the work-life balance was perfect, and I went through that, several years ago. I was a traditional financial planner for, 17, 18 years now. And I was brought into the industry. I was third generation. My dad did it. My grandpa did it. So I was like, yeah, let's go to college and do the same thing. And I'd say about 7, 8 years ago, there was a point, I have 2 daughters. My youngest was just a few months old at that point. And I realized I was working 10 hours a day, going to the office, doing the traditional financial planning thing. And I saw her, there's one week I paid attention. I saw her 7 hours the entire week. And I was like, this just isn't going to cut it. So had a conversation with my wife about it. We have to have a little bit more independence, not be just stuck to this 9 to 5 or 8 to 6 or whatever I was doing, if not longer. Back then, and what we came out of that conversation was we wanted and we needed time, location, and financial independence. And being in that industry, I was really stuck to a certain time, a certain location, and we started realizing, the internet, we have one of those. It's such a great way to get yourself out there and be able to make money and get away from just being stuck in that one single location. We decided that we wanted to get out. The whole country, the whole world is at our fingertips. Why not make it some drastic changes?
Absolutely. Well, and I think that's the thing. Like a lot of us are seeking that balance just in our entire lives, right? So I was kind of in the same boat. I worked corporate for a long time. I worked salary, which is supposed to be 40 hours, but we all know that means like 90. And it was so hard to be able to manage trying to balance family and work life. And at the time I had I'm just the four. I have 7 now. You probably noticed in my end picture, I have like all the kids. I have 7 children. But, I only had 4 at the time, and it was hard enough then. And then my almost 13-year-old now, he's autistic. So that became even more of a challenge on, you never knew, during that day, what kid am I waking up with, because it was a challenge every day. Like, today's not going to happen. He can't go to school. He can't, do anything. So, it became like a need. And I'm actually so happy for that, because I had been struggling mentally and emotionally and all the things for a long time. But, you get used to that paycheck, right? You get used to that salary paycheck. And I was like so nervous to kind of take that risk and, step out into the unknown. But in retrospect, I am so glad that I did, because it has made, all the difference, in the world, in my entire life, because I, like you just mentioned, I'm kind of captain of my own ship, right? I'm able to say, okay, well, I'm working today. No, today my kid's sick, and, he needs me or she needs me, and I'm going to be there for that. And I think for a lot of people out there, that is the goal, right? To be able to be in charge of your own schedule and whatever you do that day, and being able to be available for the things that you think is important to be available for. And, to me, that is the most important thing. And that is honestly how I find success, is that I get to choose how I'm spending my day.
Absolutely. Yeah. That was the biggest decision, honestly, is being able to, and we homeschool our girls now too. So we have literally being, we moved out of Florida at that time. Now we're up in North Carolina, and we're off to the next step after that. We RV'd all last year.
That's awesome.
On our own agenda, on our own time, and being able to pivot and create or pivot a traditional career and be able to turn it into a modern digital version was probably the biggest hurdle that we had to go through, and trying to figure out how to do it, because there's so many different paths, and we had so many hiccups and walls that we actually hit, and we veered off a path a few times, but it finally came to fruition last year, or two years ago now, to where we were able to make that jump. And honestly, it's been the best decision we ever made.
Well, and I think that's a good point to make, because honestly, I don't think there's ever a quote unquote right time, right? I don't think there's ever a moment of like, this is it, right? It's just like glowing, it's ready to happen. Like, I don't think that. I think there's always going to be this level of fear, unknown, fear of the unknown, honestly. Because I mean, for most people, that's what scares us more than anything, especially when we have a family, right? It's like, okay, well, my kids need to eat like every day. I still have to pay bills like every day. So, it's all those things. But there's never going to be a right time. And I usually tell people, I've always in some ways been a jumper. I was like, ooh, that sounds like a great idea. Let's do that. But when it came to my family's future, I was a little more hesitant because I was scared. But when I finally did it was still like a jump off a cliff, because I had no idea what was going to happen. I had no plan, which for me probably was a good thing, because I would have been like over plan. I either don't plan at all or I over plan, and there's no like sweet spot for me. But I ended up just deciding to leave because I was aggravated at them not wanting me to stay home with my kid, which finally, Mama Bear came out, and I was like, oh, excuse me, no. But, if it hadn't been for something like that, I don't think I'd be where I am now. So, I mean, sometimes it takes those moments in life. Like, I've heard it from people, like, they lose their job, and all of a sudden they're like, okay, well, now's the time to try this thing that I've been thinking about, for the case may be. But a lot of times there's never those right moments.
Right.
Now, if you do have the chance, I do always recommend, a disclaimer myself, that just diving without a plan is not the best way to go. But for some people, they don't have those choice. You mentioned that you kind of hit some roadblocks along the way and all that kind of stuff. Can you kind of elaborate? Like, I think for a lot of people, they hear, ooh, he lives in RV, and ooh, he was in Florida, then North Carolina, and he's kind of living his dream now. But sometimes I think they like to hear that, like what was some things that maybe you wish you had done different, or planned more for, or maybe plan less for, because we can't overplan sometimes.
Well, so we're my wife and I, we're both we do the same thing. We like to jump. We talk to everyone we know. We're crazy, but at the same time, we plan, and we do look at all the 4-hour work week is kind of older and outdated now, but that's what we had read back then. And it was, you gauge what's the worst that could happen. And then you put some sort of barrier there that you can, what's the worst that could happen? Yeah, we're someplace else, and I go back to what I was doing before and call it a day. So if that's the worst thing that can happen, then why not? And if you have some sort of, different ways to do it. But what we came across was, I don't want to say, a lot of it was self-inflicted, honestly, but we were, how do I pivot? And I started a podcast back in the day. And I try to go this direction and go this direction with my knowledge. And then the biggest hurdle was I had sold my business. There's a 3-year transition point where I was helping them transition into my clientele and so on and so forth. And so I had to wait 3 years after the business was sold before we could get out of Dodge. And 1 year into that, we decided to buy this shiny new home, oversized home in a great new area. And it really derailed everything we were doing. We wanted to travel. We wanted to be independent, location and time independent. And it literally stopped everything because it was a really nice town. Look, great schools and everything.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah. And we, within almost immediately, we both were like, this isn't feeling right. So we sold it after 2 years, so we wouldn't have any, capital gains tax if it's under 2 years. A little bit short on this last year's real estate market, unfortunately. So we didn't get.
That's what I was just thinking. I was like, oh, you would have, yeah.
I mean, 6 months later, we would have been making a lot more money. But so anyway, we sold it and decided that's when we moved up here. There's something called geo arbitrage, where you're actually moving to a lower cost of living area and being able to do more with the money that you have and save more and so on and so forth. So that's why we're here. And in come June, we're actually going to be moving to Hawaii. So for us, yeah. So that's
how do you pick? Oh, sorry about that. I was just making me think. How do you pick where you're going? Is there like a?
Well, we have family up in this area, but Southwest Florida, you can't take 6 hours to get out of the state. So we wanted to be more central when we were RVing, so we were able to jump around from place to place pretty easily. We were on the road probably 8 months out of last year, and Hawaii, though, we've been there in the past, and it's just been a bucket list kind of thing that I always wanted to do. My dad, being in the financial industry, he used to go to conferences over in Hawaii when people were just throwing conferences in Hawaii all over the place in every industry you can think of. So we went out there a few times, and it was just something that we wanted to do. And it's by far not a good financial decision to move to Hawaii, but it is something that we'll do for a little bit and we'll come back. Absolutely. It's something that, we absolutely wanted to do. So that's it. It's kind of, I don't want to say a whim, but it's.
Well, you get an idea and then base your plan around it. Well, and I think it's part of what we were talking about just being free to kind of do different things. And I think that, if you're not tied down to, a lot of things in your everyday life, you do have that freedom to be able to change to go to somewhere that's more expensive, right? So, I mean, it's not always about quote unquote saving money. You have to think about just experiences, life experiences, and, just getting joy out of life. And, I think it goes right back to what we were talking about, just about that balance, right? It's not only work-life balance, but it's how do you balance life with your responsibilities and being a responsible, parent and human, but also with living life to its fullest and, having a great time and being able to create these experiences and these memories that really, how do you put a price tag on that?
Yeah, you can't. And we tried, I'm in finance and that's all I think about is budgeting and how we do this and how we do that and how do you pay for this and what happens if it doesn't work. So if it doesn't work in Hawaii, then we turn around and come back and we sell things and this pays for that if you sell that. So yes, we are doing it on a whim, but at the same time, we are really figuring out, what every perspective of what could happen and we plan ahead. And really there is no price on what we're going to be able to. It might even set us back a few years on some other goals, but still it is our primary goal. So that's what we're doing.
Absolutely. Well, I think it's important to do. And I am not a financial advisor, so correct me if I'm wrong. But if, like, I know when I talk to my financial advisor, some of the things that I decide to do, some of it is on a whim. It is definitely not based on anything that I went to school for. It's like, oh, I read all about this. I'm kind of interested in this company. Let's do a little bit of this, you know. And I've even invested in some startups and stuff like that. So it's like, obviously, there's no guarantee on anything, but there's definitely no guarantee on startups. And
Yeah.
it's, yeah. So, I mean, I think it's the same thing, even when you're talking about from, you know, your world, your investment world, you know, there's never really a guarantee that you can slap on anything. You're always making these educational decisions on, you know, even in that world. So I think it's the same thing when you kind of flip it into what it sounds like you're doing with your life. You're still going in with a plan. You're still going in with that, like you just said, let's do a budget. Let's figure out if we can make this work. But I love that you mentioned, like, what's the worst that can happen? Because I say that all the time. And honestly, before I read that book, I thought I was a genius because I thought I was the only person that ever said that. But that was something I've literally asked myself my whole life. I'm like, okay, what's the worst that can happen? Like, what's the worst that can happen? And with some things, there's some really bad stuff. And those are the ones you need to be cautious on, right? But for a lot of things, I think we sometimes, and that old saying, we make a mountain out of a molehill. The worst thing really, a lot of times, is not that bad, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And there were things that we were thinking of doing and going to different locations. And there's something that, what's the worst could happen? Yeah, we don't want to do that. So we don't go.
Yeah.
That's basically
Absolutely.
what it was.
Absolutely. Well, you know, I do want to ask, what does your wife do? Does she, I mean, work?
She's a stay-at-home mom. She helps. She does the homeschooling for the family, and then she also helps with my company. So helps with a lot of the marketing and branding that we have going on. Yeah.
Do you all work pretty well together? I think me and my husband kill each other.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. It's because we have the same goals. You know, sitting down and saying, this is what is going to, having an annual discussion or this is the goal of the year. How we get there. I can't do this because time. Can you help? And same here with me. You know, I help doing with some of the homeschool stuff too. So it's having the goal. If you don't have a goal, then honestly, that's when you start spending money for no reason, keeping up with the Joneses. You know, if you don't have your money earmarked for something, you're going to spend it on you're going to spend it on something stupid. Is really what you're going to do.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I talk to my kids about that now because I have some older kids too. And I'm like, if I could go back to my 16, 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old self, oh, I would have a big old discussion with her because she had no idea. Like I was never, I guess I didn't really blow a lot of money because I didn't have a lot of money, but even the little bit of money I had, if I'd been smart about it and I knew the things that I know now, oh my gosh, it'd be a whole different world. And it's just trying to get a lot of these kids to understand that because, you know, they want it. I always say it's kind of like a microwave society in a lot of ways. They want it now, right? They want it right now, and it's balancing that. And my kids have always thought I was kind of mean on it, but we've always, you know, tried to convince them to save. They get birthday money, you save half of it, and whatever the rest of it, whatever. I don't even care. Do what you want to do with it, but try to convince them to save half of it. And you know, not that they're going to have a major amount of money by the time that they're older, but it's a start, right? It's good habits, just like anything else.
Yeah, I mean, there's something called, and I've geared all my, my new financial companies to the financial independence community. If you're familiar with that, and financial independence is when you can have your assets pay for your liabilities, basically pay your bills, and that was another big, that when I found that community, which is a global community, it's huge.
I've actually not heard of it. I've not heard of that community.
You have heard of it?
I've not.
You have not? Yeah, look, there's FI, which is financial independence, and then there's FIRE, financial independence, retire early. And it is a global, there's Facebook groups everywhere on it and blogs. And, you've probably heard of Dave Ramsey. Yeah. But Dave Ramsey gets you to the point of getting out of debt, and then FIRE takes it from there, basically. So keep that mindset. But there's more, like, there's good debt, there's bad debt, and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
And there's different paths to get there. And it's a community of people who are super motivated, not by things, but by the lifestyle, and they question the, go to school, go to get a degree, get a good job, and retire around 65. You're questioning that, and that's a good thing to question it. And this community is extremely motivated and focused, and it's, like I said, not just on the money, but having a balance, having a lifestyle.
I'm gonna have to check that out. I mean, it's kind of like what we, do. It's funny because a lot of the things that I've kind of figured out, like I mentioned, as I get older, I figure things out. I figure out that it's like, okay, this is not new information, and why did I not know it for the last however many years? Right? And it's funny that, I mean, there's so much that has gone on, because I'm in my 40s, but there's so much that has gone on just, in my generation. We had word processors still when I was in high school.
Oh, yeah.
And now it's like, there's access to anything and everything. And that's what I try to tell, my kids. My oldest daughter, she's 23, but you literally have access to learn anything. If you question on what's the best way to do this, start reading a whole lot and finding out and asking questions. You literally have access there. We had encyclopedias. Mom and Dad had a whole set of encyclopedias. You can only find so much in there.
That's right.
So it was
library. Yeah.
I know. It's like you have everything. I was like, if I could have, my personality, I always say I'm a research junkie. When I want to know something, I want to know like all about it. If I had the internet, I would have been like so thrilled. But I just think, it's great that there's these groups that, and I'm gonna look those up. It's great that these groups exist, because you figure out, like, you have your own piece that your own little puzzle piece, and then somebody else adds another kind of layer to it, and you have all these experiences and perspectives, and I love being able to get involved in groups like that and learn from them, right? I like, there's some groups that I'm in that I feel like I know a whole lot about that subject, but every once in a while somebody else and then they're like, oh my gosh, I never thought about it like that. And, I think it's great to have that kind of stuff to fall back on. And it's one of the reasons of doing shows like this too, is because, I love talking to people, and I learn so much from guests I have on. I'll have people that'll write me and say, oh my gosh, this episode, I didn't even know that. And I think it's great that we have access to try to do all of these things now. And it's amazing. I think it's really building into what a lot of us have been wanting for a long time, which is that idea of, hey, how do I, remain, free in my life to be able to do what I want to do in a given day? How do I still, make money to be able to support my family, but I'm not tied to a time clock? How do I do all these things? And, I think that that's where a lot of these resources come into play, to be able to tap into, say, hey, if you want to learn more about this, you can go here. Learn more about this, go here. And the cool thing is you can do it wherever you're at, from a phone, from anything. Absolutely. And it's honestly, as crappy as some of the things and we talk about in our world is right now, that's one thing that I'm like, is just amazing. It's opened up so much for so many people out there.
Everything is at your fingertips. Social media paves the way to, and there's negative things about social media too, but having everything at your fingertips, and it also paved the way for you to be able to make money. It's back, if you weren't a doctor and lawyer, everything else is, middle of the road income wise. And now it just be able to make extensive amounts of money. And I don't want to say anybody can do it. You have to have the motivation and willpower to do it, but it's there if you want it. And that's basically what it's done. Yeah.
Well, and I think that's huge. And I think it's funny, too, how you mentioned doctor and a lawyer. Because when I was a kid, people would go around, what do you want to be? And it was usually a policeman, a fireman, a doctor, a lawyer. It was always the same things, right?
Yeah.
And then now you ask, and my kids, I have a boy that's 12 and a boy that's 9. And those two specifically, they're like, I want to be a YouTube star. They watch these people playing games on YouTube. And that's like the goal. That is like, that generation's like, this is it. I have made it, right? It's so funny.
It's like, what do you like to do? Okay, I like to play video games. Okay, so you can create a YouTube channel. You can do this or you can do that, and that's how you make money. Yeah, there's so many different ways to do it now.
Well, and the funny thing is you can. Now, I keep trying to explain to my kids, I'm like, this is fine. You can have this as a goal. I was like, but some of the dollars that some of these people are making, because my one son showed me an example that some guy was doing these unboxing videos making like, I don't remember, 9 million or something. It was some ridiculous number. And I'm like, that is like the the business equivalent of winning the lottery, though. I was like, that's what you have to understand. Can it happen? It can, sure. Right. That's not what you want to make as your goal. If you want your goal to be this, and you're monetizing the channel with, sponsors or whatever else, and you want to make a business plan with that, realistic, you can do that, whatever. If your goal is, hey, I want to be a YouTube star, play video games all day and make 9 million, I wouldn't really yeah. Definitely. So I think it's just so funny how some of these kids are, and I think it is because you do hear these stories. And I remember there's also this Play-Doh phase. Did any of your kids ever watch people play with Play-Doh on Facebook, or not on Facebook, but on YouTube?
It's slime.
Oh.
Slime is what my kids are. If you got slime and geez Louise, what are they? Slime and the sand,
kinetic sand.
Kinetic sand.
Yeah, my kids watch that some too.
Yeah, slime is the biggest thing. Yeah, that's.
And there are also people getting paid millions of dollars to do that. And I remember I was talking to my husband, because I'm look at this. I just got curious. I'm looking at it, and I'm like, where was this at when my guidance counselor was like, hey, here's some options for you? Where was this at where they would have been like, hey, one thing you can try is just, play some Play-Doh, film yourself doing it, I was like, where was that at? And it's just so funny, some of the things. And I'm sure our parents probably were the same way with some of the stuff that maybe we did, but it's just so funny just watching how things grow and change. But, the biggest, I guess, lesson behind that is what we were talking about earlier, that people literally have the ability to take anything, and with the right amount of planning and work, and you can make money doing just about anything.
Seriously, you can. Yeah, I mean, I'm talking about finances on TikTok now.
Yep.
I didn't think I could do that 10 years ago. No way. So it's incredible.
So do you do the TikTok dances and stuff too?
I'm not dancing. I'm not dancing. I
wasn't judging. I was just asking.
No, you don't want to see that. No, I'm just talking. I'm a talking head. I started like 5 days ago, and I was like, it's already showing dividends. It's crazy what you can do. That's like bigger than Google now. I never thought in a million years I'd be on TikTok, but
no. Oh, it's funny. I've kind of been dipping my toes in. It's like one of those things. It's like, I feel like I was telling this to my 16-year-old. I'm like, I feel like I don't belong. You have the really, really old people on there that are killing it, and you have the really, really young people on there that are killing it. And then there's me, my age. I'm in the middle, and none of it. We have no idea what to do. Do we aim more up here? Do we aim more down here? And we're just all over the place with no consistency.
It's just what we do with our hands.
So hard. It really it is. It's like, what do I do? I literally said to my sister, I'm like, I don't know what to do with my hands. I'm like, I don't know, where do I fit? I'm in this weird middle age. It's almost like, do you remember what we said, the awkward phase, that awkward phase, between elementary school and high school. It's like you don't know what to do, and you're trying to fit in, and so you're trying this and you're trying that and you're trying this. I feel like I'm there again on TikTok, and it's a little sad. I'm not gonna lie.
It starts with the younger generations, and then 30s and 40s will come into it, and then they'll go someplace else because they don't want to watch us doing anything. So they'll Instagram all over again is what it is. Yeah,
it is. It's just you just keep having to jump, and that's, I don't know, it's part of it. I get fascinated by watching how people kind of react to things, and I'd say honestly, if you're given a lot of financial advice, people are very interested in that, and especially women right now. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a woman. I'm saying that because just historically, we haven't been taught as much about the financial world as men were, as boys were, just historically. Even in a given family, I can remember, my brothers got more of, financial, what, you want to do this and this and this. And it was more like, hey, here's how you bake this cake, type of thing with me. So, and it's not that that's bad. It's just there's been this, I guess, gap in education on those things. But now a lot of women are so hungry to learn about a lot of these things that technically they should have known the whole time. Yeah. And, I think that's a big opportunity for you, because it's primarily females that are on TikTok. So yeah,
I'd say it's split evenly now. I would say, in the past it was mainly I'd be speaking to the men. And now, honestly, if not more, the women are taking control of the finances and so on and so forth. So, yeah, they're the ones making the decisions with the money, because they're intrigued. They're learning. They're taking the time to actually look at it. And it's not just being done for them. So it's a good thing. Yeah.
It is. It's a huge thing. I mean, I have out of my children, because I said, like I said, I had 7. I have 4 girls and 3 boys. So for me, I'm excited that there is there's more evenness going on with kind of how they're being educated, and I think it's because a lot of us are a little bit more educated on some of these things now too. So like, what's your target? Like when you're speaking to, well, I guess we'll just say TikTok, for example.
Sure.
Who is your target?
Yeah, so I've dedicated. So I founded, since I sold that my company. I founded one company, which is an online life insurance site, and I merged my part of my business with a 401k company. And so I've dedicated both to the FI community, coming up with ways to retire early, basically, or change the mindset. So I talk about kind of all things right down the middle with the FIRE community. I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs on how to start saving, like a 401ks. So we basically build and develop 401ks for businesses, from one solo entrepreneur all the way up to hundreds of employees. So yeah,
that's huge, because as I'm a business, not just an entrepreneur, but I'm a business owner, and I even in 2 of my businesses have employees. And if you're not in that world, it's confusing.
It is. I'll be honest with you. There's a lot of financial advisors that don't know the whole story there's a lot of CPAs that don't know the whole story, and it's a very unique niche or niche, whatever you want to call it, and it's vast. There's so much to know, and finding out, there's 2 questions that you need to ask yourself when you're trying to figure that out. The first one is, what's your main motivation? Are you trying to save for retirement? Are you trying to save money on taxes? Or is it to recruit and retain high quality employees? Because we're all in we're trying to get business from our competition, but we're also trying to have employees from our competition. So what is the motivation? And the second one is, how much do you want to save? That's the first question narrows it down to 2 or 3 different kinds. And then the last one will tell you exactly which one you need. So
is there one that it's like, if I was like everything, there's like this perfect like bubble
with
awesomeness with all of it? Yeah.
Well, so the Safe Harbor 401k is IRS pre-approved vesting and matching schedules that allow the owner to max out regardless of what the employees are doing. If you don't have a safe harbor and you have employees, everything's based on fairness. So whatever they do, you're only allowed to do a certain amount above what they do. So the safe harbor, and there's different kinds of safe harbors out there too. And if you don't have employees, I mean, solo 401k, there's 401k plans and different kinds of retirement plans that you can save over $350,000 per year pre-tax. So to save 6 digits, I mean, it's incredible what's out there. And it's just, the stuff that you see that's kind of at your fingertips is not even close to the full picture that's out there.
But I'd say a lot of people don't know, because it's like I said, I remember I looked into it some. And then I get overwhelmed because I'm like, I have no idea. And it's kind of one of those things, like, I don't want to do the wrong thing, that's for sure. So you do nothing when you don't know what to do.
That's that, right. You stall. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and it's kind of, it has to do with how much you want. If you want to save less than $6,000 a year, do an IRA. Start there. Don't worry about all the self-employed rules and regulations around that. Just start with the IRA, and then once you graduate from that, then you start looking into the next step and see what's available there.
I think that's awesome. So, I mean, if we do have primarily entrepreneur listeners, really, if you look, more female entrepreneur listeners. Okay. And so, if somebody out there right now is, I guess, like I just said, like they've been looking at it and they're like, oh, I would love to do this, but it's like, they're overwhelmed, they don't know what to do. Where would be the first place to start, other than, I'm sure do you take on clients, or how do you do that?
Oh, yeah. So I'm the CMO and shareholder of the company. So our website is 401k.expert, and we have actually a tool on there, right at the top, right at the banner. It's called the Evaluator, but it's just basically it goes through those questions I told you with a couple other ones, and it'll kind of narrow down your search a little bit and say, okay, these are the 2 options that I should be looking at, and then from there it's how much do you want to save. So that's a good place to start and narrow it down. And then I talk a lot about it on my TikTok. I really am. I'm putting a lot of effort into that. And that's at Matt_Ruttenberg. And that is, the question is, do you do a SEP or do you solo 401k, and how do you decide that? And those are the kind of things I'm going through with people on there. But at the same time, just reach out and ask me. I'll answer it for you if you don't want to deal with it. Some people like to just reach out and ask a question, and that's what I'm here for. But at the same time, if you want to do your research, that's a good place to start.
That's awesome. I like a little of both. I do like to research, but when I get enough information, then I'm like, I just need somebody to tell me what to do because I don't know.
I'm a millennial, and I embrace technology, but give me the phone, and then I'll.
Yeah, it's like I even do that when I have a CPA, and he'll tell me you could do this, this, and this, and this, just talking about even like with the taxes. I'm like, I don't know. Tell me, give me some options, and then if I have an opinion, I'll tell you. If not, you just tell me. I need to think about less decisions, actually. And and I think that's the thing with a lot of entrepreneurs. We wear all the hats, right? So to be able to take one decision off of our plate, I think is a huge thing. But at the same time, we would need to be saving, and I think that's a great tool. I actually just saved it in my phone because I'm actually gonna do the tool and see what happens.
Yeah, great.
But I think that's a great thing because again, it's something I've looked at. I don't even know how many times at this point I looked at it, and then I get overwhelmed, like, okay, and on to kitty cat videos on TikTok. Because it's like, like too much. I don't even know. Overwhelmed, so I'm gone.
It's not fun. It's one of those necessary evils, Both of my companies are necessary evil. Life insurance and 401k, saving for retirement, saving for the rainy day.
So with life insurance, do you typically lean people toward term or whole? Or
I'm a big advocate of term. And honestly, the reason why is it's affordable, and you're basically renting somebody else's deeper pockets, the insurance companies, until you fill yours. And there's a point where you don't need life insurance. I think everything I've done on that site, and it's all online, you can get quotes and stuff on there. But basically, I do it reverse of everyone else is the way I developed it. I want you to save money. There's different strategies on there, like laddering that you can lower your policy, your premiums and things like that. So at some point you don't need it. And that's the whole FIRE community. The whole FI community is at some point you don't need life insurance. And when you don't need it, get rid of it. Yeah. And what is that number and how much do you need? And those are things that we answer on the website and all that. So I'm not an advocate of just having as much as you possibly can and having expensive, cash value policies and things like that, where, those are the wealthy strategies is to get a whole life policy. But I guarantee you they're also doing term life insurance, and they're maxing out their 401ks and investing outside of a brokerage account too. So there's a lot of noise out there, and trying to figure out how to narrow it down. And that's what my goal is.
Well, and I think that's important because there's a lot of noise, and especially as a business owner, let me tell you, oh my gosh, there's like all that. No, you need to do it like this. You need to do it like this. You need to, and all these are professionals, and I don't know. I have no idea. So you start getting, I know. So you're getting all this stuff, and you're just like, my brain just hurts, and I don't know. And I love that it sounds like you make it super simple because simple is what we need. I'm just speaking for the people. Simple is what we need.
It never helps when you're trying to, when you talk over someone's, and it's funny when I first came into the financial industry, the goal was to speak as difficult and over everyone's head as possible to make yourself sound as smart as possible. And I don't think that works. I think you need to talk to how everyone else wants to hear it and actually explain it. People want to be educated now. They don't want to just be told.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and I think be educated to the point where maybe they have, because like I said, with my CPA, I trust him 100%. And I know him. And, if he gives me 3 options and I don't want to dig into all 3, I'm educated enough on the options behind the scenes. And I trust him enough that I'm like, you know what? I don't know. I don't want to think about one more thing today. You decide that. And I think that's where a relationship comes in. with, somebody that you're working with, especially when you're dealing with finances. I
Yeah.
always think it's so funny where people are like, it's not a big deal. It's just money. And, that's always baffled me because I'm like, okay, money is like so personal. It's like, that's the things that we literally leave, even if you're working from home, your kids are in the other room, you're leaving your family for whatever amount of time a day to be able to get it. But then yet we try to make it where it's not personal. And so, I always think it's funny when people like try to like DM me, randomly, like, hey, have you thought about, I'm like, even if I had thought about, I'm like, it's just that that's not the way to get it, because that's, to me, it's like you want to be able to develop that relationship. And I think what we were talking about earlier, even just with like social media and TikTok and all those things, it's, especially if you're like wanting to reach national, to be able to do that, you need to utilize things like that, because that's how you're going to still develop that know, like, and trust factor where, you feel like somebody a little more because you hear them speak. You're not just reading something flat. You're hearing their voice, you're seeing, their personality. You're deciding, okay, well, I kind of vibe with that person. That's who I want to handle that, because I think that is so huge, because, you can look at people's, resumes or qualifications or whatever, and even if they're exactly the same, we may not mesh well, right? And this person over here, we may mesh well. And I think that is one great reason that of utilizing, that social media platform, even if I feel like I suck at TikTok.
Hey, I feel the same way.
I don't know. I'm gonna have to get on there and I'm gonna have to look. I'll let you know. I'll be like, I think this needs a little work. Well, I'll critique you.
My wife's doing all the stuff that makes me look with words, with all copy on it and all that. So.
I'm sure. If your wife's doing it, I'm sure it's fine.
Yeah. She's better at that than I am.
Probably. She's just like, okay, stand here, smile like this, say this. I was teasing my husband because everything that was like coming up on my algorithms had me questioning my entire life. It was all these like men chopping wood, right? I'm like, why are they randomly showing me men chopping wood? And I would look down. I happened to look down and it had 3 million views. I'm like, that's it. I'm like, we're changing our strategy. We have an outdoor wood burner at our house. We live on a farm. And I was like, get out there. I said, you're going to have to chop some wood, because apparently this is what the people want. I said, let's get the algorithm going. Yeah, this is what they're wanting. And my husband's like, you're insane. You're completely insane.
That's funny. Yeah, just put a video camera. Just record it that you're burning wood. And you'll make
exactly. Apparently, it's so funny what works, and I think that's cute. So you said that your TikTok name is just your name, Matt Ruttenberg?
Yeah, it's Matt _Ruttenberg. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So we did. Let's see. We got your 401k website. What was the one for life insurance?
Yeah, life insurance is SureLI.co. That's SureLI.co.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah, and there's all sorts of information on there on what's the best strategies on how to lower your death benefit, and you can go in there and get quotes on your own too, so you don't have to worry about connecting if you don't want to. And we have calculators on there that through that same process on how much you actually need, which all there's the Dave Ramsey method, there's the financial independence method, and then there's paying off your debt and that kind of thing on there too. So you get to kind of play around and see what's affordable.
Well, and I love that you're not only teaching it and you have the business name, but you're also living it, right? So we talked when you first came on just about kind of doing the whole RD life, which that I'm not gonna lie, that sounds really cool if I didn't have so many children, which I have a couple of them that are moved out, but that sounds absolutely horrendous with the number of people in my family. So me and my husband have this discussion. It sounds really cool. Not with all of
We're done with it already. We did it for a year. We're done.
Yeah.
We finished. It was a lot of fun. But you're always emptying something or filling something up. That's basically what the gist of our being here.
I love my kids, but sometimes I want to love them when they're over there. I want to love you from afar. Go somewhere else for just a few minutes.
Square footage was a lit. Yeah. You learn minimalism and what matters.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everything is great, but just give me a little bit more room than that. Yeah.
We've been there and done that. When we were looking to buy a house, we have a house that we rent out, and it's 1,200 square foot, 2-bedroom, and there was 5 kids at the time. So it was me, my husband, and 5 kids was in there until we found a house to buy. So this was way before everybody was like, oh, tiny homes are so great. And when everybody started, we're like, no, been there, done that. That is something that for some people, great. But for us, that we are not a tiny home family.
Right.
We just are not.
Yeah.
We got on each other's nerves so bad. And I love my family. Don't get me wrong. I love my family, but sometimes we need some space.
No, absolutely. You gotta have space.
So yeah,
You gotta
it's
have
so funny.
space.
You know, my friends were like, we're thinking about doing this tiny home. I'm like, that's a trap. Let me tell you. And it's funny because even the work from home stuff, which everybody's figured it out now since COVID, but for some people, and I'm some people, work from home, it was not my thing. I tried that. I built an office at the house. I was like, I'm going to work from home. It's going to be so great. It would take me 5 hours to do 30 minutes of work because it'd be every 5 seconds. My kids would be, I'm thirsty. He won't stop touching me. No. And I'm just like, and my brain feels like Swiss cheese, and I have nothing to show for my actions. And, finally I was like, you know what? Work from home works great for some people. That is not our life. I'm better off if I can remove myself, go ahead and hurry up and get my stuff done and go back. I'm more present when I'm there. I'm not as frustrated because I'm not trying to bounce back and forth between two things. I'm more productive. So for my family, work from home did not work. And when a lot of these people would, be like, oh, this is a work from home opportunity. No, thank you. Not interested. Thank you. Not my thing. But, other people love it, and that's great if it works for you. But, I think that's the big thing about being financially independent is that word, right? Independent. You get to choose what works for you and your family.
Absolutely. Yeah. You get to choose exactly how you want to do it. And you're removing the stress of not having an option or having another method. So that's independence. That's time, location, and financial independence. That's our three main goals.
So how do people join that group or find out more about that group?
There's with the Dave Ramsey, there's one person kind of running the show with that. Mm-hmm. And this is a collective, there's blogs, there's podcasts everywhere. Mr. Money Mustache is one of the pioneers.
I don't even know who that is, but I'm intrigued.
.com. Yeah.
Just the name. I'm like, I have no idea what you're selling, but I want to.
No, he was one of the first. I think that was the website that I found first. And then there's Choose FI is another. They have a podcast out there, and I mean, there's so many people who have reached financial independence, and now they're teaching how you get there. So if you just look up FI or FIRE, on a Facebook group, it's everywhere. There's books out everywhere. It's just really starting and probably jumping on a Facebook group is going to be difficult because they're all. There's a lot of different strategies on there, but finding a blog or podcast or a YouTube channel that's kind of just introducing it is probably a great way to get started on it. And honestly, the mindset is, you want to save, you make drastic decisions, not necessarily, a lot of people say, don't go out and go get Starbucks for a cup of coffee. If you want a cup of coffee, go get a cup of coffee. It's changing that career, getting side hustles, doing the geo arbitrage that I mentioned before, making those decisions that actually make a big difference. And honestly, income is the biggest,
Yes.
Side hustle. Earned income is the best rate of return you can get. Yeah.
That's another thing that has always baffled me. And I think I mentioned earlier that I grew up with no money. So when you're poor, you have no money. Side hustle is a way of life, right? It's like, oh, we need food today, so so that's how I grew up, Yeah. So just being able to work odd jobs, and I had 3 jobs when I was in high school. So working was always kind of a part of my life. But even as I got older, even when I worked the corporate job and I didn't financially need to, I always had these little things I did on the side. And I'm sure my therapist would tell you that that was me just making sure everything was always okay.
Yeah.
But, one of my arguments on it was people would say, why do you do all these things? You don't need to do all these things. And I'm like, well, to me, it doesn't make sense. You go to a financial advisor and they say, let's diversify your portfolio. That's what I've always been told. 100%. Diversify your portfolio. So I'm like, okay, they're doing that because the market fluctuates and everything's unstable. But on this end, it fluctuates the same, if not more, and everything's, if not more, although the same stable, it's more stable, unstable. And I'm like, it never made sense to me that you're putting all your eggs into one basket, because I've watched people they're in this one industry and whether they're working for somewhere else or have their own business, the market crashes in that industry, and then they're having to start something else from scratch. But if you always have these little things kind of simmering, you're just kind of like stoking it. I'm an integrative nutritionist. I've been a nutritionist for, I don't even know how many years at this point, lots of years. And it's something that I've never given up. Number one, because I do love it and I love my patients. But number two, at any point in time, if my business consulting company just completely went under or nobody hired us or whatever, all I have to do is devote more time and energy to that. It's a
pivot
business. I could easy. And, I've got several things like that. And I've always done that. And to me, that's normal. And I love that it's becoming, I guess you would say, more normal for a lot of people. But, there's this like hidden society of people that like me that have been always doing it. That we're just like, oh, I didn't realize this was like, there was a term for that.
You hit the, having why would you invest all your money in one stock? This is exactly what you just said. And I think the average millionaire is, has 7 sources of income or something. And I don't like using that because, I don't like saying the average millionaire is doing it, so you go do it. No, because they started somewhere too. But you have to have multiple sources of income. And during COVID was a huge example. Like one could stop very quickly. And now what? And your biggest asset, a lot of people say it's their house or their savings account or whatever. It's your ability to earn income. And if you don't have the ability to earn income, then that's it. It's done. You don't have anything else. So
absolutely. It's funny. I teach a workshop and I've done speaking engagements. It's called Mastering the Side Hustle. And I've done it for years. And during COVID, I had people calling me going, do you still teach that class? Do you still teach that class that you used to teach? And I was like, I can do it. Video. It's just funny. There were several things that during COVID, it was like light bulbs went on. People were like, oh, I was crazy for a lot of that stuff. Like, why would you want to do all that? But, there was, some things people start to realize. And, there's a lot of things I learn from other people all the time. Trust me, I don't have it all together with a lot of everything. But and I think that's the big thing, again, like we were talking about, is that, having access to the internet and, can hop on webinars. And I'm a webinar junkie. I not only do I teach them too, but I love taking them. I love, I can put it on, on the elliptical or working out or something. I'm listening to this stuff. I eat it up. I'm information junkie. And, that's the thing. Like there's really no excuse at this moment to not try to educate yourself on, okay, if you're not happy where you're at right now, whether it's financially or, your job or whatever, right? If you feel stuck in whatever way, there's kind of no excuse not to start learning and absorbing information and go and check some things out, because there are so many options out there, no matter where you're starting at now. I always tell people you have to start where your feet are planted now, obviously. But the sky's the limit, really. And everybody can do something starting where they're at now.
Yeah, 100%. Everything's at your fingertips. Just make the decision, make the jump, plan ahead. What's the worst that can happen?
Absolutely.
Jump. Yeah.
I think that's perfect. And I think it's a perfect place to kind of go ahead and end. I know we've been chatting for a long time. I've enjoyed this conversation. I'm going to check out. I've been typing in all the stuff you've been saying on my phone. I'm going to check it out. But I'll make sure for people that are watching this replay, first of all, hashtag replay, so we can follow that in the comments. And if you're listening to this on the podcast platforms, you can check the show notes, and all the links to all the things that Matt mentioned will be there. Is there anything else that you want to share with our listeners before we leave?
No, I think we covered a lot of it. It's just be intentional with your money, make good decisions, have goals. And I got to tell you, just the worst thing you can possibly do, just to leave it here, don't do the keep up with the Joneses type. That is probably the most toxic mindset you can come up with. Absolutely. And as soon as you get yourself out of that, everything falls in place.
Yeah, and most of the time they don't like you anyway, so it's fine.
Right.
That's what I always tell my friends. I'm like, we don't play that game. I said most of the time they don't like you, or if you think they do, they probably fake like you. We don't do that. So, yeah, but love it. So we will be back again with another live episode of Successfully Chaotic next week at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And thanks, Matt, for being on again today. And thanks to all of our viewers and listeners. You all are amazing.
Thanks, Mary. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Bye.
Bye.